I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as Studio B. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday Season 4, recorded on October 11th, 2018. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the Clifton Strengths themes one at a time, and today's theme is Relator. If you have questions, comments, contributions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window, right down there. Just take a peek. Bottom left-hand corner of that window, choose the login account. Choose the guest. You can log in with any social media resource that you want, but if you don't want to do that, just choose the guest account, take out the name, the guest word, and the numbers. Put your name in so we know who you are and hit submit. Love to have you in there. You can ask your questions live during the program, especially important for the post show. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about anything related to strengths, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your Clifton Strengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio. We call that podcasting now. Real popular. All the kids are doing it. Available for you. All the links to get it done are available on our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review whatever platform you're listening on. If you get that opportunity, we always love to hear from you, and it helps with our rankings. So if you want to do that, get it done as well. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She works as a workplace consultant here at Gallup. If you were in the pre-show, you saw she has a guest, but we, Maika, are glad to have you. Welcome to Theme Thursday.
Thanks. Thrilled to be here. Thanks, Jim.
Always good to have you. Relator, we should say Cheryl Pace, who's a good friend of the podcast, does a lot of work for us on the back end, which a lot of folks don't see or even realize. Many of the show notes that are written for Called to Coach are written by Cheryl. It's her number one, and she was a little disappointed she couldn't join us live today. But so, Cheryl, I know you're listening to the recorded version, but let's dig in, Maika, on this as we think about Relator. What do we think about?
So I'm thrilled to talk about Relator. In fact, I tapped into one of my favorite coaches who leads with Relator and got a bunch of good Relator insight from her. So hats off to Rosie Liesfeld for this one. When you think about Relator, it is a relationship building theme. Just to be real brief about it, it's about folks who are attracted to and able to build long-term, deep interpersonal connections. So they're always driving towards stronger connections, strengthening the bond between people within those relationships that already exist. I also like the word that I actually stole from a quick email that Rosie sent me this morning talking about Relator as socially intimate.
That's a good way of saying it. I think of it as deep and wide. So woo is that wide and Relator is that deep in relationships. And now that song is going to be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. You're welcome. When it's at its best, what does it look like? What's the value it brings?
The value of Relator, I think, is the constant encouragement of authenticity within groups, really being that voice who listens for something more than just what's on the surface and really drives for what's true. I think Relators, in a lot of cases, are brave enough to be themselves and really reveal themselves to people. Now, it's typically within those closely guarded, very, very intimate relationships, but that kind of desire for that connection, I think, drives even when you're around groups of people who you might not consider as being in your inner circle. And the way it shows up is that support of people sort of being vulnerable and being themselves and driving toward that kind of social honesty. I think Relators also, in many cases, serve as the glue between people. If you've got high Relator, one of the values that you're likely bringing to your team is helping that group know and appreciate the individual. So, and also think about telling their social history. So because Relator is about longevity of connection, instead of just that quickness of new connections, you might be slower to make assumptions and really able to see the context of the value that people have brought in the past. I think that allows you to make sure that you're not missing out on the best of your friends because you've seen them at their best. You bring that along with you from the past into the current, and really can serve as a supporter, an advisor, a trusted friend.
As I work with students that have Relator high, I always ask them, so I bet you have a few friends, but those relationships, like, you know everything about them. And it's always funny because they just look at me and just, they shake their head like this. And it is one of those characteristics of really, I think of really good, deep friendships, of knowing all those important things about them, birthdays, anniversaries, some of those kinds of pieces. We often, when I'm on teams, I even though I have it high, I kind of struggle with some of those details still. I just don't remember those things. And for me, we'll talk about this a little bit later. For me, it's been a value to find those relators and then turn them loose on team.
And Jim, where's your relator?
9, I'm going to say 9 or 10. It doesn't function like everything else. It doesn't always function to the true definition because it's got other things kind of around it. But I have relator and individualization, which is one of those 1-2 punches when we talk about people.
Well, and I think, even just listening to the words you use there, where you say sometimes you struggle to find some of those things or struggle to remember some of those details. I think the interesting thing about having relator as a dominant theme versus it sounds like perhaps a supporting theme for you is it's not that you have to look to find those things. When you really do have relator high within those relationships that are closest to you, you're not searching, you're not categorizing, you're not filing away that information. You're seeing it right in front of you. I imagine it sort of to be like light bulbs with your closest friends, of being able to see what's true about them, what's powerful about them, to without even trying to remember when their birthday is and when their anniversary is and how they like to be celebrated. There is an element there that I think we're discussing that individualization also does. What individualization is looking for is what's different about this person compared to another or compared to a group. How do I see just that one person? I think what Relator does is, how do I really get to that point where I am open and honest and raw, and all of me is there with a small group of people.
Yeah, no, it's a good explanation. What can I do more of, or what should I do more of?
Well, do more time, spend more time with your closest trusted circle. There is no limit to how well you can know someone when you have high relator. There's not a point that you're going to come to where you think, yep, we're friends, let me move on. I think it's important for you to deepen those relationships. And we'll often find when I'm coaching people with high relator, I'll ask them, when was the last time that you just had some good friend time? And I find that when they feel they're out of balance, either with their engagement or their family or their well-being, it's usually a telltale sign when they can say, you know what, I really haven't, or I do really need to reach out, or it's been a long time, or I can't remember the last time that I've really just let go and had some good friend time. So do more of that. It's not selfish with Relator. It's how you're going to feed yourself so you can be better for other people. Also, I think take time to get to know your most important partners. So you're going to be stronger and faster once you feel that there's a sincere connection there with someone. I think sometimes there's a bit of a dichotomy within Relator where I can be slow to build that long-term trust, but once it's there, I can be really fast. Often there's some speed at the front end because relators can sort of suss out whether somebody is going to be a good long-time friend or a really trusted advisor. They can kind of get a feel for that almost at a gut level really quickly. So I think it's important to intentionally make sure that you are giving your most important partners a little bit more than that gut check, really going out of your way to build those relationships and to understand that you're never ever in any aspect of your work going to be okay keeping things just business or just personal, that it's always going to be better if you can have a little more personal.
It's one of those things for me that really works to my favor, and that I know we need it, especially in team environments. Teams will be stronger if those relationships are more meaningful and understanding. The velocity can often pick up faster on those. While it may not be natural to me and it takes a lot of work to get it done, I can rely on others, or I can set up environments for others to make that easier to do.
Yeah.
What other ways could I, Maika, provide the right environments for folks with high relator?
You just said, provide opportunities. And I think activities that help you feel a mutual bond with others are things that you should ask for. Now we haven't said this explicitly, but relator, I think, often gets misunderstood as just being really relatory, or, walking into a room and relating all over the place. Relator's selective. It's choosy. I'm going to do this really with my closest circle. So I think it's important to realize that maybe explore how your closest circle got close to you and ask for that, curate that within your own environment. It might be that you get close to people when you share a challenge, like being responsible for different aspects of a shared goal. It might be when you travel with somebody, or it might just be when you find time to have a really deep conversation with a colleague. So I think it's important also to know that if you have Relator, this very suggestion of, hey, find a way to have a mutual bond with somebody might feel like a turnoff, because it's likely much easier and much quicker to do things on your own unless you're certain that you already know the other person, or you're certain that this is somebody you're really going to love. This isn't something you're going to do all the time. It's not something you're going to do with all of your partners, but I do think it's going to work to your benefit as something worth doing on purpose for partnerships that you know that you will need, and people you know you'll need to rely on in the future.
Maika, we've got some things that relators can worry less about. What are those things?
This one just makes me exhale. I love this question this season. You are not, if you've got high Relator, you're probably not going to be excellent at or in love with small talk. And I wrote that in my notes, and then I thought, wow, small talk sounds kind of negative. And so I thought, well, maybe that term itself was likely coined by somebody who has Relator, because it doesn't sound like it. I've never heard anybody say, I love small talk, or, hey, tell people to come to me for chit chat. But I do think that that is something that I hear quite often amongst Relators, is they don't want that surface level sort of schmoozing, working the room interactions. And again, I think let go of this desire to be everybody's friend. Relator can be misunderstood because it sounds like you're just great at relationships, when the truth is you're selective about relationship and great at those. And that's okay. It's okay to be picky about where you invest your social energy, as long as you're investing it somewhere.
I am for the woo. Small talk is strategic. Like, it is information gathering. That's how you figure out where people are in the room. So it's interesting how that term, I think, small talk, has gotten kind of a negative connotation to it.
I mean, if we were to call it quick connections, or like making people comfortable really fast through communication, like, I'd love that. But I have high woo, high communication, kind of low Relator. I still don't want to admit that like small talk is my gang.
No, it's my superpower.
Right? It has a negative connotation there. So I think that's okay. That's okay. Relator, no matter what you call it, it's not Relator's vibe, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I have both, and I like to go deep with people in conversations and talking communication. Right, you and I both share that together, and I love to use the small talk as an avenue to figure out if they're even interested in that. And so, because some conversations just aren't going to go anywhere, and I just know in the early kind of conversations, striking it up, is there fertile soil for a deeper conversation, and you can kind of work that out through some small talk without just diving right in, right? So have some small and then you might hit a vein in something, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this person's willing to go deep.
You are defending small talk.
I like small talk.
I do too. I call it building rapport, but we're not talking about woo today.
Sorry to derail us.
No, never.
Okay. When we're working, for those of us working with Relator, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, I think managers, leaders, we've been doing in the Q12 for Coaches series, we've been talking a lot about leaders. And I think leaders, you really need to pay attention to the folks in your group who have high Relator. They have this amazing superpower to really glue, like you mentioned, glue teams together, right? Yeah. So Maika, what can we expect? What should we be looking for when we're working with Relator?
Look for warmth, look for openness, look for those moments specifically when they're warm and open, and get curious about what led them there. They're going to be warm and open, especially with the folks on their short list or their inner circle. You might also expect some cautious evaluation of potential new relationships. That's a really wordy way to say they can be slow to warm up to new people. But I also expect some beautiful loyalty, some real true authenticity, and some appreciation of that in others. That's going to accelerate your team and accelerate the connections between your team. Expect an ability to and a desire to cut through those surface level interactions.
Relators may have the opportunity to recognize people, especially because they know them well, but how can we recognize them?
Celebrate the benefit that they bring because of the longevity of their connections. Are there clients or subject matter experts, or even students maybe, who are from this person's past and are today very important to the success of your team or the success of your current goal. This relator's relationship is probably what got you there. So celebrate that. I also think generosity is often a hallmark of relator. So recognize when this person goes out of their way for somebody else. And it's usually going to be for another person, not for a cause, not for a metric. It's going to be for another human. And that's certainly something to appreciate and celebrate.
We do a recognition program here when you hit 25 years. I think they send notes around to all your team members and to write up some things, and we put a book together for you. And I think it's one of the coolest things we do here at Gallup. And interestingly enough, I think there's a good opportunity. That's a big recognition item that we have here. But I hadn't thought this through until we were talking about this just now. If I was putting that book together, I would definitely look at the people's top 5 that I was sending those notes to and find those relators and make sure I'm tracking down like those relationships, because chances are you may get better information from them or more detailed information than you would get from others.
That's a great idea. So maybe even add to that recognition thing of channel their best people, right? Channel their inner circle. Maybe even recognizing a relator. This is an assumption. It's going to depend on their values and their other themes, but maybe recognizing a relator means recognizing their family or recognizing people outside of work who they're very close to, and not just seeing them, but seeing the connection that they have to other people.
All right, I'm going to pull from the chat room just because this goes back to me defending Woo here. But Paul says, he just realized he has Relator 5 paired with his Command and Activator 7. It often makes him go too deep, too fast. He said he loved the insight about small talk. So take it, Maika. Okay, how do we just say it? No, I'm just kidding. How do we stretch relator? What's the
just jab them on their live podcast? That's all. Take it, Jim. What was the question? Stretching.
How do we stretch? Yeah, how do we stretch relator?
Help them to get to know the talents of their colleagues. Challenge them to spot potential and to name it. Remember that what you're tapping into here is their fantastic, enduring, in their sleep ability to see kind of into the realness of a person. I'm trying to say this without sounding too creepy. They can sort of cut through the noise and see the real people. So help them do that through a lens of talent. Help them do that through a lens of potential. You might even stretch that relator talent to go beyond sort of the self-serving who can I connect with? Not that that's go beyond just who can I connect with and go into what am I seeing that maybe could be great partnerships that I could encourage to happen among other people, or great potential that I could encourage, or great succession planning, great opportunities to develop others. Because part of that natural talent within Relator is the ability to really see the person and not see the noise or the facade or the rapport, but really see the individual. So tap into that and help them do it through a lens of development.
Yeah, that's good suggestions. How can we partner with them? Like, how can we support them even deeper?
Yeah, if you're partnering with somebody who has high relator, go out of your way to spend time with them in their favorite setting. So do they thrive one-on-one? Then if they do, show up with them one-on-one. Are they especially switched on by art or sports or animals or kids or nature? Being there with them will translate to being there for them. And that is my mic drop sentence of all of my notes for Relator.
Nice. We'll make sure that one makes its way into the show notes for sure. I love when you said that. I love this idea of finding an environment that works best for them. And it might be a coffee shop. It could be lunch. It could be an early breakfast. Like, what is that environment that supports just beyond? Because like we never live in a one-dimensional environment. It's always multi-dimensional, right? And what is that thing, even a time of day that fosters their relationship skills and talents? Some people are,
and you can find it by looking for, where do they use the word always? I think I'm married to a relator. I love this theme in others. It's not part of me, but I get to partner with it all the time. And he's been a diehard fan of one very specific college sports team since he could talk and was writing letters to the coach, right? And so look for those opportunities. So when I put on that team jersey, every basketball season, I feel a great connection with him. Now, I usually fall asleep before the end of the actual game, but there is that feeling that I get the benefit of being something that he's so deeply interested in. And there's a lot of his other themes at play there too. But I also think look for where's their longevity in their interests? Where is there some real almost soul level connection to what they love or what they've always been a part of. So I think also when you talk to relators, you say, hey, tell me about your best friends. And very often they can name, people that they grew up with or people that they've been with since the start of something. It might be the start of a career or the start of a new adventure or the start of maybe some sort of a partnership, or even something as simple as saying, I've always loved the Jayhawks. So look for where their alwayses are and show up there.
That is a great clue, by the way, Maika, just as we think through what are we listening for? We have this in our selection process. We have these interviews that we do, and we actually call them listen fors, right? That's what are you hearing? And I think that's a good reminder to me and maybe for everyone else as well, that when you're having these conversations, small talk or not, that you're listening for these clues. Like, what are you, as we go through these pieces, what would I be listening for? So if I'm going to meet with a relator and I'm having a development conversation, what are the clues to their talent that I'd be listening for? Specifically, I might even write those down in advance so that I don't get distracted by the conversation and forget. Like, what am I looking for in this conversation that would help me deepen my ability to use their relator or help them understand that more? I think that's a really important thing that we do, both as managers and as coaches.
Well, that's how you're individualizing your approach as a manager. And we know if we're ever going to move the needle on engagement, managers are the ones who are going to unlock it. You can't get around that. And so a relator aside, every single one of these themes for season 4, the reason we go through how to work with somebody with this one is exactly what you just mentioned, Jim. How do we set folks up to know what to listen for? On that recognition piece, if you just listen to that 1 to 2 minute clip from every season 4 episode, that would give you the what should I look for? What should I listen for? And how can I play it back to them? Because strengths don't develop in a vacuum. They develop in relationship to other humans. So you be going out of your way to hold up the mirror to this person and to say, hey, when you talk about the Jayhawks, you light up. Is this something you've always loved? What else have you always loved? Where else do you find longevity? What is it about loyalty that really lights you up or that you look to expect in your partnerships? Right? So that changes and instantly personalizes the relationship that you have with that person. And that's how they love to show up to work more.
This is the part of the show where we say, because you mentioned listening to every theme in this section, Chris Townsend has put together a kind of a spreadsheet for us that has a lot of the things, his notes on what we've done. Maybe a little bit easier way to go in there. We still appreciate you listening. Early on, Maika, in the pre-show, we were talking about some Called the Coach theme Thursday stats. Yeah. Some 372,000 listens to the Gallup Webcast platform last year, which is pretty amazing to me. Like, you're going and doing that. For those of you who like to read, we made that a little bit easier. It's in our Webcast page, by the way, on Facebook. Head out to facebook.com/groups/called2coach. Many of you are joining in that way through the webcast. Thanks for listening to us and joining us there. Chris has put that in the files section, and it's available for you if you want to get it done. He'll also drop a link here in the chat room as well. Maika, you also post these dominant and lesser theme challenges out there each week. And I love what you're doing because you do it via Instagram and then you reuse that. This is great. My maximizer goes nuts when you do this. I love that.
There's probably some sort of really cool social media term for what I'm doing, but really I'm just posting the same thing I do on Instagram to our Facebook page.
It looks really good. The way you do it on Facebook looks really great. It's been a good opportunity for us to share those out with you. So we put those in the Facebook group. But when we think about these challenges, we'd love to interact with you. And it's not us coaching you. This is an opportunity for you to share what you're doing around these. We just kind of want to hear what's happening. We actually had a conversation this week way back to Achiever. Beginning of the season, someone had posted about, hey, I heard on the podcast, what kind of technology do you use? And we went back through the conversation about OneNote.
I thought it was about like which one of the challenges on Achiever was to make a list. So what was it? And that conversation, it's so, I think, filling and enriching for people with those themes, and such a great, I think, educational opportunity for us to learn, for those of us who don't have those themes. What is it that people are drawn to? What is it that I can do to invest in them?
Right on. Okay. We've talked about where it's at. Instagram @Strengths Talk.
Here it comes.
Facebook group. What are we doing?
Dominant theme challenge. This means if you have relator as a dominant theme, your challenge to really move that from potential to performance is to define intentional ways to interact. We've got 3 ways you can do this. Number 1, I'm calling put up your friend antenna. Name someone who might be a potential best friend and reach out and get to know them this week. So somebody not in your inner circle who you just sense might someday be there. Number 2, shower some appreciation on someone you admire. Recognize someone that you find especially important in your circle of trusted friends. So this is somebody who you feel is really important to you, who makes you better. Go to them and make them feel important. And number 3, get to know your manager. I want you to initiate a conversation that features both you and your manager expanding on and talking about your lives outside of work. Go ahead and initiate it. It's not going to be bad. Just try.
I have an intern right now who likes to ask me about my family, which is I love, right? It's one of those things I love to talk about it. And so, yeah, number 3, this can be a powerful tool. Ask your manager. Like
I sense feedback already of this is going to freak some people out. And I'm tempted to come back and like apologize for number 3 and say, don't do it if it's not appropriate. And of course, don't do it if it's inappropriate. But also realize that relationships and collaboration are what drives engagement. And we're not doing this to be cute. We're doing this because we have to fix this engagement problem.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to find out times when getting to know something about your manager would be inappropriate. So just do it and get out there and get it done. As a manager, I always appreciate it because oftentimes we think it's just the manager's job to get to know their employees, but man, the managers really appreciate it when a question is asked about them as well.
Turns out they're humans.
Are they really? Okay, let's allegedly. Okay, lesser theme challenge.
If Relator's a lesser theme for you, your challenge is to just explore how you nurture relationships. Low Relator doesn't mean you don't value relationships. It just means that you're likely drawn to a larger quantity and a greater variety of connections than people with high Relator. So first, number 1 challenge for low Relator folks, I want you to name which of your themes help you develop trust and intimacy, and what behaviors showcase these themes. So again, that one is which themes help you develop trust and intimacy. And when those themes are really working, what kind of behavior do other people see? Number 2, I'm calling deeper connection. In one conversation this week on purpose, I want you to take a deep breath before you answer a question. Use this breath to clear any fronts, any small talk, or any show that you might have built up. And then as you release that breath, go ahead and answer that question from your heart rather than from your head.
I like it. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, that would have been what I just said in 4 words, which probably would have been better. Take a deep breath.
No, I think it's a good reminder. I don't do, and I forget where I was talking about this, but even I think sometimes in conversations we can just stop for a second and let silence be silence for a second, and let that be. And oftentimes we're in a rush to just say the next thing. And I think as a relator theme, as we're talking about that, I think letting that silence sit for a moment and reflecting upon what was just said without having to answer it right away can be a dream for someone who has high relator to really get to what matters, to what's really, really important. And so I'll just throw that out there, maybe in your conversations this week. Let silence reign. Like let it just be. And don't always be so hot to keep the conversation rolling. We're designed as humans, I think, to do that sometimes. And so we're fighting some natural tendencies. But be intentional about it and be on purpose. Maika, what else would we say as we kind of bring this to a close?
I think it's really important for us to realize that relationships matter no matter where relator is for you. That if you're truly going to be strengths-based, you're never going to get there if you can't know the other person that you're working with, know the other people you're working with, know how they work best, and work every day to honor them as much as you honor your own commitments. So for those of you who have relator, we're so thankful for it. We need you to share it. Not too much because you have relator. And those of you who don't, I think it's really, really important just to name the ways that you're going to build those relationships. We're all in this together. And that's really the essence of this entire movement.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible. Don't forget, these are superpowers. And as you're finding people around you, you have an incredible opportunity to either encourage that or discourage that. And so choose the encourage this week. Let me challenge you just to say, as we encourage one another, I'm wondering if we couldn't even do this in our own groups, like in our own Facebook groups, in our own, wherever we're at as coaches, to encourage one another, to spur each other on. And we do a pretty good job of that. I'm wondering if we could do more. I'm wondering if it could be better. And so as we think about the release of the All 34 report that's coming up here, and so it's going to have some incredible information that's going to be new and available to folks, I think we're going to have even more tools at our disposal to be able to see the superpowers and not forget. And sometimes, Mike, I feel like we race so fast to domains, or we race so fast to try to generalize things, either whether it's in countries or in groups or in teams, that we forget that these are all made up of individuals. Yeah. And that what's really important in this is that we understand the individual and really maximize their performance, right? Really increase their engagement, really work to make them feel special. And yes, the big numbers matter. I don't know where, but they do matter sometimes as we look at them. But really, this is an individual exercise that we're doing to make really people feel special.
It is, even from a scientific point. You know, when you take Clifton Strengths, you're not comparing yourself to other people. It's not an assessment where you're saying the best in a role have XYZ. How much of XYZ do you have? It's a very special instrument where you're saying, I'm more like this and I'm less like that. And all of it is good. So then the challenge becomes really paramount for you to say, okay, I'm more like this. How do I do that? That's where I think the most of our energy needs to exist, in the how do I do more of how I'm like, right? How do I get better at this? How do I translate my talent into real success? And that's a harder question than I think sometimes we ask, but it's certainly worth asking.
Right on. Well, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available. I mentioned that new CS34 report that's coming out, available at the Gallup Strengths Center, not yet. Actually, the 24th or 25th. It'll be late in the afternoon on the 24th. It's going to be available at thegallupstrengthscenter.com. You can send us your questions or comments. If you'd like to be a guest blogger, we've got some, although we're a little backed up at the moment, we may not be by the time you write this. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, put guest blogger in the subject line and send us your blog. We're looking for something original, 400 to 600 words. Love to hear what you have to say. You can send that to us. Again, coaching@gallup.com. You can also catch the audio and video of this show and all the past ones, so 400 or so past episodes that we have out there. If you're just new to this, by the way, don't be overwhelmed by that. Take them one at a time. We've just got lots of information for you out there. Maybe you haven't caught on to our Q12 for Coaches series. We talked about it a few times here today. We have a whole series with Dr. Mike McDonald talking about how to take engagement and coach to it, maybe into the organization you're in, or help other leaders and managers in the organizations they're in. All those resources are available on our coaches blog. Go out to coaching.gallup.com. If you're interested in becoming one of these Gallup certified strengths coaches that we've talked about, and a lot of listening out there, all the information to get that is in our courses page. Go to courses.gallup.com. Actually, there's some advanced training, and we have some new training coming. I just went through the course last week, Boss to Coach. Yeah, pretty amazing stuff that's out there. If you want to continue on in your education, we'll have courses available for you. Of course, many of that can be applied to ICF. So if you're doing it that way, you can get it done as well. And if you're not a coach and you're just listening, thanks for doing that. Yeah, we love to have you here. But we love to have you keep coming and share it. So share this address, gallup.eventbrite.com. All of our webcasts, the most up-to-date information available there. Eventbrite is BRITE on that. And you can sign up to get an email and get notified and all that other great stuff as well. I mentioned the Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach. Just ask to be invited. I'll let you in. We'll be back. We're getting close to the end of the series. The end of the year for 2018 is upon us. You might be listening to this at a later date. We want to thank you for joining us today, especially if you joined us live. Stay around for the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.